What do you think it is about you that makes people want to be a part of whatever it is you're a part of?
I'm brand new. Everything I do is always brand new. I'm on the premise of reality. I walk a real road. I'm a real person inside. I'm not a phony. I don't put on no airs. I say what I think. You see what I'm saying?
Aren't you putting on an air now? Aren't you putting on an act for me?
When you look it back, see if it's an air. See if where you get it. And someone sees it and goes by and they say, hey, how you doing? I say, pretty good. How you be?
There's a time for living.
In the late 1960s and early 70s, at the time of the moon landing, hippie movements, John F. Kennedy's presidency, the Beatles, the civil rights movement, and much more, Charles Manson led a cult named the Manson family that struck fear into the people in the state of California. But before we get into the murders the family committed, we must discuss what led him there. Charles Miles Manson was born on November 12, 1934 to his mother Kathleen Manson Bauer Cavender, who was only 16 years old when she had him. Around the age of 10, Manson and his mother, who became a heavy alcoholic at the time, moved to Charleston, West Virginia. Manson started to stop attending school and began stealing from stores in his own home. His mother started to look for a temporary foster home for Manson, but she was unable to find one suitable for him. She decided upon Gilbert School for Boys in Indiana, a school for male delinquents ran by Catholic priests. Manson would later run away to Indianapolis 10 months later. Instead of going back to his mother, he rented a room and supported himself by burgling stores at night. He eventually was caught, and a judge sent him to Boys Town, a juvenile facility in Omaha, Nebraska. After only 4 days, he and a student named Blackie Nielsen stole a car and somehow obtained a gun. They used it to rob a grocery store and a casino. As they made their way to Pearl, Illinois, the home of Nielsen's uncle. Nielsen's uncle was a professional thief, and when the boys arrived, he took them in. Manson was arrested 2 weeks later during a robbery on a store. He was sent to a strict reform school. He would later claim that other students raped him with the encouragement of staff members. With being attacked frequently, Manson developed a self-defense technique that he called the insane game, in which when he was physically unable to defend himself, he would screech, grimace, and wave his arms to convince attackers that he was insane. With a psychiatrist's recommendation, Manson was transferred in October of 1951 to a Natural Bridge Honor Camp, a minimum security institution. Manson had a parole hearing scheduled in February 1952. However, in January, he was caught raping a boy at knife point. Manson was again transferred to the Federal Reformatory in Petersburg, Virginia. There, he committed a further 8 serious disciplinary offenses, 3 involving homosexual acts. He was moved to a maximum security reformatory in Ohio, where he was expected to remain until his release on his 21st birthday in November of 1955. Good behavior led to an early release in May 1954 to live with his aunt and uncle in McMahon. For 10 years, Manson was either on the run or being transferred and moved throughout different schools and reformatories, being fairly young throughout all of it. Following his release, Manson would again be arrested and he would be caught up in prostituting women. In June of 1966, Manson was sent to Terminal Island in preparation for early release. By the time of his release on March 21, 1967, he spent more than half of his 32 years in prison and other institutions.
People look at you today, 20 years later, and they still have no idea what you're about. Tell me in a sentence who you are.
Nobody. I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight razor if you get too close to me.
Upon his release from prison in March of 1967, Manson received permission to move to San Francisco, where he began attracting a group of followers, mostly young women from around California. Manson established himself as a guru in San Francisco. Vincent Bugliosi said in his book Helter Skelter that Manson appeared to have borrowed from the processed Church of the Final Judgment, whose members believed Satan would become reconciled to Christ and they would come together at the end of the world to judge humanity. He implied that he was Christ and often told the story, envisioning himself on the cross. Manson taught his followers that they were the reincarnation of the original Christians. They would soon settle down and lived in the Topanga Canyon, Malibu. In July of 1969, Charles Tex Watson, a member of the Manson family, scammed a local drug dealer Bernard Crowe to obtain money for Manson. Crowe threatened Manson and the Manson family. Soon after Manson shot Crowe, Manson speculated that Crowe was part of the Black Panthers, an African-American self-defense organization. However, Crowe did not die, and Manson feared that Crowe would come after him. In order to escape and move into a new territory away from the Spahn Ranch, the Manson family compound, Manson needed money. He was told that his friend Gary Hinman was coming into some money from an inheritance. Manson ordered Bobby Busolio, Mary Brunner, and Susan Atkins, all members of the family, to go to Hinman's and persuade him to turn over the money. Hinman was uncooperative. He was held hostage for days. Manson would later confront him himself and with the sword and slash Hinman's left ear. Ultimately, Bobby Busolio murdered Hinman by stabbing him twice in the chest. Busolio was later arrested when he was found sleeping in Hinman's vehicle, wearing the same bloody clothes from when he stabbed him, and with the murder weapon hidden in the trunk tire. It was a goal for Manson to be a musical artist. Even the music you've been hearing in the background this whole time is Manson himself. Manson even wrote songs for the Beach Boys, but when Terry Melcher, an American musician and record producer, rejected his music and advised people to give him no attention, Manson sent Charles Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kazabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel to his home to destroy everyone in it, as gruesome as you can. But Melcher wasn't in the home though. Instead, it was movie actress and fashion model Sharon Tate, wife of film director Roman Polanski, who was 8.5 months pregnant. Sharon Tate's friend Jay Sebring, a hairstylist, Polanski's friend and aspiring screenwriter Wojciech Frykowski, and his girlfriend Abigail Folger. When Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kazabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel arrived at the entrance to the home, Watson climbed the telephone pole near the entrance gate and cut the phone line to prevent telephone access to the house. At that point, it was midnight. It was now August 9th, 1969.
We have a weird homicide.
In a scene described by one investigator as reminiscent of a weird religious rite, 5 persons, including actress Sharon Tate, were found dead at the home of Miss Tate and her husband, screen director Roman Polanski. Miss Tate, who starred in Valley of the Dolls, was 8 months pregnant and was found in a bikini-type nightgown with a rope around her neck attached to the body of a man.
2 bodies inside, 2 bodies outside.
Among the other victims were Hollywood hairstylist Jay Sebring and coffee heiress Abigail Folger. Authorities would allow no one in an unofficial capacity inside the posh $200,000 home in the hills overlooking Los Angeles. When police arrived, they found the telephones and electricity lines cut. The bodies had been dead about 12 hours. They were discovered this morning by a maid who ran screaming to neighbors. One officer summed up the murders when he said, "In all my years, I have never seen anything like this before."
They backed their car to the bottom of the hill that led to the estate and walked back up to the house, thinking the gate might be electrified or rigged with an alarm. They climbed the wall to the right of the gate and dropped onto the grounds. Then headlights approached them. Watson ordered the women to hide in the bushes. He ordered the approaching driver to stop. Out stepped 18-year-old student Stephen Parent, who had been visiting the property's caretaker William Garrison, who lived in the guest house. As Watson leveled a .22 caliber revolver at Parent, he began begging Watson not to hurt him, claiming that he wouldn't say anything. Watson first lunged at Parent with a knife, giving him a slash on the palm of his hand, then shot him 4 times in the chest and abdomen, killing him. Watson, now at the house, cut the screen of a window. He told Kazabian to keep watch down by the gate. He removed the screen, entered through the window, and let Atkins and Krenwinkel in through the front door. As Watson was whispering to Atkins, a sleeping Frykowski woke up on the living room couch. Watson kicked him in the head. When Frykowski asked him who he was and what he was doing there, Watson replied, "I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business." Watson directed Atkins to find the other people in the house and force them to the living room. Jay Sebring began to fight back and was shot and stabbed 7 times. Frykowski's hand had been tied with a towel. Freeing himself, Frykowski began struggling with Atkins, who stabbed him in the leg with a knife. He fought his way out the door, where Watson caught up with him and struck him over the head with a gun multiple times, stabbed him repeatedly, and shot him twice. Abigail Folger fled the room she was taken to and was chased by Patricia Krenwinkel. Folger was stabbed by Krenwinkel and eventually stabbed by Watson as well as a total of 28 times. Meanwhile, Frykowski, who was still alive, was struggling across the lawn when Watson came to stab him, again a total of 51 times. In the house, Tate begged to be allowed to live long enough to have her baby, and even offered herself as a hostage in an attempt to save the life of her unborn child. At this point, either Atkins or Watson killed Tate, stabbing her 16 times. Her unborn child did not survive the attack.
While the police admitted they had no suspects in the Bel Air massacre, there were 2 more murders 15 miles away in the Silver Lake section of Los Angeles. Market owner Leo LaBianca and his wife Rosemary were found by their children stabbed and mutilated. The word war was carved into LaBianca's chest, and death to pigs was smeared in the blood of one of the victims. The word pig had been scrawled in blood on the door of the Bel Air mansion, where actress Sharon Tate and 4 others were slain, but police said, despite the similarities, they do not believe the crimes are linked.
The very next night, on August 10th, 1969, Manson and 6 of the Manson family members, Leslie Van Houten, Steve Grogan, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Charles Watson, committed another murder. But unlike the Tate murder, Manson joined in on the LaBianca murder. Manson and his family drove around looking for murder victims. When they arrived in the neighborhood of a home which they had attended the party the year before, the home belonged to a successful grocery company owner, Leno LaBianca, and his wife Rosemary. There are many differing accounts from the Manson and 6 Manson family members on what went down, so the exact happenings of the murder are not certain. Manson says that he approached the home alone and returned later to bring Watson along. When Manson and Watson were in the home, they tied up the LaBianca couple with a lamp cord and pillowcases covering their heads. Manson tried calming down the couple by telling them that they would not be hurt and that they were being robbed. All the cash was collected, and the tied-up Rosemary was returned to her room. Soon after, Manson left the residence and instructed Van Houten, Krenwinkel, and Watson to kill the couple. Watson began stabbing Leno multiple times. When Leno cried out to stop stabbing him, Rosemary was still tied up and began swinging the lamp still attached to the cord wrapped around her neck. Van Houten and Krenwinkel yelled for Watson's and stabbed Rosemary multiple times. Rosemary was stabbed a total of 41 times by Watson, Van Houten, and Krenwinkel. Watson then returned to the living room and continued to stab and kill Leno. Krenwinkel carved the word war into Leno's stomach and left a knife in Leno's throat. Leno was stabbed a total of 26 times.
Do you have any remorse at all for anything that has happened?
How am I going to feel remorse? What am I supposed to feel remorse about? Everyone says, you feel no remorse. I said, can't you understand I'm not guilty of anything? Is the Beatles responsible? I play music. People are affected by the music I play. That doesn't mean that I directed traffic, that I put a knife in someone's hand and tell them go kill somebody. I'm not that stupid, man. Do I look like I'm that stupid? Do I communicate like I'm that? I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid.
Going back to the Tate murders, Tate's housekeeper found the bodies the morning after the murders and called in LAPD investigating officers. The LaBianca murder was under LAPD jurisdiction, but an announcement by the LAPD incorrectly confirmed that the Tate murder and the LaBianca murders were not connected. In the beginning of each investigation, the communications between the 2 agencies were lacking. Because of this, the murder investigations led to separate dead ends. The continuous criminal activity in the Manson family helped authorities in catching more than a dozen individuals. While the Manson family was in Death Valley, they burned machinery belonging to the Death Valley National Monument. Burning the machinery led to the raiding of the Death Valley ranches by police authorities. During the raid, police found multiple stolen vehicles and made multiple arrests. Luciolio's girlfriend, Kitty Lutzinger, was arrested along with the Manson family at the ranches. Lutzinger would later tell detectives that Atkins was involved with the Hinman murder. Meanwhile, Atkins began sharing the details of the Tate murder to her bunk mates in jail and admitted to being involved in the Hinman murder. Physical evidence against Watson and Krenwinkel was being collected at the time, such as fingerprints and a .22 caliber high standard revolver with a broken grip was found on a property near the Tate residence. LAPD issued an arrest warrant for Watson, Kasserman, and Krenwinkel for their involvement in the Tate murders and the LaBianca murder. Warrants were not made for Manson or Atkins because they were already in custody for unrelated crimes occurring in the ranches in Death Valley. Watson and Krenwinkel were arrested in different states. On June 15, 1970, the Tate LaBianca trial started. Manson, Watson, Atkins, and Krenwinkel were being charged with 7 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy. In the beginning of the trial, Manson was permitted by the court to act as his own attorney. However, after several violations of conduct, permission to represent himself was withdrawn. As a result, Manson carved an X on his own forehead in objection to the withdrawal permission. The jury took a week to deliberate and came to a verdict of guilty for all charges of murder and conspiracy for all defendants. During the penalty phase of the trial, the jury declared the penalty of death. But when the death penalty was ruled unconstitutional in 1972, Manson's original death sentence was modified to life on February 2nd of 1977. Manson remained in jail until his death on November 19th, 2017. He died from cardiac arrest resulting from respiratory failure and colon cancer.
Your home is where you're happy. It's not where you're not free.